Welcome back to another semaglutide educational video. The reason we're doing this one is because we're talking about muscle loss. I've had a question in my DMs today with someone saying, I heard it strips muscle off you like nothing else. That's not true. These are all the things that would cause you to maybe lose muscle. Causes of muscle loss. This and this category are not in this list. We have extreme deficits, as in extreme calorie deficits would cause you to lose muscle mass because you're in a massive calorie deficit and your body needs calories. But it also needs nutrients and protein. So we're not just talking calories. We need to have a degree of those calories come from protein and a large amount of the food that we eat, being real food, if not all of the food, especially if your calories are low, to give you enough nutrients. And for you guys that are deciding that you want to take so much that you have no appetite whatsoever and stop eating, semaglutide is not causing muscle loss. You abusing semaglutide and not eating food and being in a massive calorie deficit with low protein and low nutrients, lack of resistance training, therefore causing poor hormonal function, high stress, poor sleep and recovery, reduced training intensity because you're absolutely knackered because you're not having any food, if you're training at all, a loss of training technique because the kind of people that abuse this are definitely not going to have good training technique. That's the reason you're losing muscle, not this. It's this list. This just causes those to be amplified because you're abusing it in the first place. It doesn't cause it. You don't take semaglutide and start losing muscle. You take semaglutide and have a reduced appetite. That could cause all of these things. That's the reason you're losing muscle. Understand depth. Not surface level solutions, surface level information. This is really starting to frustrate me that morons, especially aesthetics workers, no offense if you're not one of these people. If you are, take offense. The aesthetics workers, which are the main cause, from what I can see, of the poor information around this whole topic, plus some studies from America on obese people with diabetes. If you're not an obese person with diabetes, then a study from America studying people who don't do any of the... Let me just put it into context so you can understand. If I'm an obese person with diabetes, I'm probably then going to take so much semaglutide that I now don't eat enough. So I'm in a massive deficit. I'm definitely not going to eat enough protein. I'm definitely not going to have a high nutrient dense diet. I'm now going to weigh less, so the bit of resistance that some of my body was carrying is then going to be less. I'm probably not going to train with the resistance, so therefore there's no weight-bearing exercise to hold the muscle or build the muscle, so therefore it's going to leave. You're in a massive calorie deficit. Your body's going to pull food from somewhere. It's quite easy to break down muscle tissue when you're not having any of these things to maintain it. We're going to get to this one in a second. As I say, you start then being obese, you've already got poor hormonal function, you've probably got lack of resistance training, you've probably got no nutrients, you've probably got low protein, and you're just in a massive calorie surplus. Now we're putting you in a big deficit. You're overweight, so you're probably not going to sleep very well anyway. That may actually help slightly when we lose weight and we get there. Your stress is probably still going to be high, although slightly better. You're still going to be in a stress state if you're not having protein, you're not having nutrients, you're not fit and healthy, etc. And then reduced training intensity. Well, now you're knackered because you're not eating any food. So you couldn't train hard even if you wanted to. And then you're probably not going to train with good technique because if you were if you were training with good technique and good intensity, this wouldn't be a conversation because you'd then be already fighting muscle loss by doing resistance training, having a high protein diet, having high nutrient levels in your food because you'd be eating properly in the first place. Instead of eating loads of shit or less shit because you're taking semaglutide, you'd now be eating just high quality food, which would give you optimal hormonal function unless you had some sort of medical condition, not diabetes. I'm not classing that as a medical condition when it's self-imposed as type 2 diabetes. It is completely reversible, which would then fix your hormonal function. So all of these things which can be adjusted would give you all of these back if you did things properly. And one of the biggest things, because this guy in the DMs actually said, I've heard it's no good for bodybuilders, it's going to strip muscle off you. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to take steroids. They overwhelm every single other thing. Take enough drugs, you will not lose any muscle. Even if you stop training, it would be a couple of weeks before you really start to lose muscle if you're taking enough drugs. That is the most powerful variable in this whole situation. So if you're bodybuilding, you're taking steroids, Just ignore anything that says you're going to lose muscle, because this will overwhelm it. Moving on. If you're now having good sleep and recovery, that's going to also aid in reducing stress and maintaining proper training intensity, proper training technique, because you're not tired, and it's going to allow you to just maintain that muscle. We then put you in a calorie surplus just to round off the whole situation. Now, not only are you not losing muscle, you're gaining it. But even if we took that away and we had the rest of these, you'd still not be losing muscle. Even if we took away that, but we kept these in, you're still not losing muscle. You could have shit hormonal function because you could be putting other steroids in the mix. You're still not losing muscle. Could we get rid of anything else? You could reduce protein, but you'd still need a decent level of protein over the recommended daily allowance. So we'd still class that as a high protein diet. You probably still wouldn't lose any muscle. Do you know what? If these are in and you're an average person, which the majority of people taking steroids are not competitive bodybuilders, they're average people, you still wouldn't be losing any muscle because you wouldn't have that much muscle to begin with. So as long as you're doing resistance training, taking steroids, and training with at least relatively good technique and intensity, you're not going to lose any muscle. So all of this stuff is the reason. And these are the things that would combat all of these things. That has absolutely no bearing on it whatsoever. Whatsoever. Semaglutide has zero impact on any of these. Not on its own. You don't just take it and have a direct effect. You can take it, too much of it especially, have all these things happen, that has the effect. So it's not the semaglutide, it's the lack of food, it's the starvation, it's the extreme calorie deficit, the exhaustion, the high stress, the poor sleep, the poor hormonal function, the bad training. That's the reason you're losing muscle. So I understand there's studies that say that semaglutide was taken and a load of people lost a load of muscle. But it wasn't that simple. As we've now explained, hopefully you guys have got the information and you're now going to just throw studies like that in the bin. Because even if you were one of the people in this study and you're obese with diabetes, if you did this, get rid of that one. Put the rest of the list back. If you did all of these things, you wouldn't be losing muscle, you'd actually be gaining it because you're probably someone who's very unhealthy in the first place with a low protein diet, low nutrients, lack of resistance training. So we put those in. Not only would you be losing weight and getting healthier, you'd be getting fitter, stronger, and everything else in the process. It's understanding the information. Stop looking at abstracts, stop looking at something you've seen on TikTok or anything else, and gain a good understanding of information. If you don't have the knowledge to gain this level of understanding, this is what people like me are making these videos for in the first place. Please stop looking at idiots on TikTok or some study that was used as confirmation bias for a narrative that someone wanted to create, like semaglutide causes muscle loss, semaglutide causes cancer, semaglutide causes, plug in whatever other negative that you can think of, and I will come back and combat it with more information. Every single time, everything that's been thrown out so far, I have completely thrown in the bin and explained why. This is why you need to look for the right source of information. Any other questions, please do come at me, because we're going to explain them in full depth.